Welcome back to that rugby podcast. Last week I was in Paris and got to witness the New Zealand woman get into the sevens final, unlike the Australian woman. And then I even managed to see them win a gold. So it was a lot of good fun for me. But obviously there was the other half of this podcast, yourself, Husey, who had heartbreak. No other way to put it. The Golden Girls fell short.
Yeah, fell in the semi-final for sure, and then in the bronze medal match, the final play of the game falling short there. Look, the only thing I could console myself with is at least it's good for the game of rugby. At least the game of rugby is getting some bloody good attention, and not only rugby, women's rugby is as well. So, look, it takes the edge off the bitterness. It takes the edge off a little bit. I'm sure a lot of those girls would be disappointed. Madison Levi, I think, had one of the greatest Olympic campaigns of any sevens player ever, male or female. Just incredible try scoring ability, incredible all round ability. I'm sure she'll make her way into the 15 squad at some point. But yeah, not too much else to say about it other than it was good for the game. We put ourselves on the altar of rugby and sacrificed ourselves for the good of the game.
That's
what I tell myself.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's what most Australians are telling themselves. Now, as a neutral perspective, obviously there's a couple of things I want to mention here. A, your girls robbed us of probably one of the greatest ever finals that was going to be. Like, it was two juggernauts were heading to face each other, which, hey, it happens, as we've seen. B, I don't think, especially the bronze final, as much as I love seeing Australia lose, I don't think you could have lost to a worse team. And that's not the actual females, the Americans on the side. The supporters of America, and I know everybody in the world already knows where I'm going with this, but oh my God, the arrogance afterwards, it was like their shit didn't stink. And I just sat there and I was like, you just got beaten by New Zealand in the semi-final, but you scored like on the last play. That whole game, they never looked like the better team. And I just sat there and I was like, I don't even know where to put them. Like, I think American supporters may be worse than South Africans already in rugby, and that's hard to do. And now, obviously, I'm making a generalisation with the South Africans there, but I just sat there and I was like, 90% of the time you'll see me celebrating an Aussie loss, especially in the rugby circle. This time was one of the few where I was like, after the final whistle blow, and I'm happy for the American women's, but the supporters just lost their mind. Like
it's hard. The team is so likable and such good personalities for the game, but it's just American Olympian supporters overall are just, we've seen it with the swimming as well, just overly competitive. It's like we're a nation 10% of your population, and you only just beat us in medals in the swimming. It's like you guys got all the money in the world. We're little old Australia here. So geez, it's not a great look on them, and the arrogance they have with it. Yeah, look, we know what Americans are like. We don't need to get into it that much. But it is great for the women of the American sevens rugby team. They did definitely put their heart out there, and they definitely work hard for the game.
Totally, yeah, and I saw that rich Americans put $4 million to the American female women's rugby program, which is awesome. Do just want to quickly mention Portia Woodman-Wycliffe as well, who for the New Zealanders started for us and now won her second gold medal at the second gold medal for Olympics, and is a two-time 15s World Cup winner. Is probably last game she'll play for rugby on a world circuit, maybe, you never know. Obviously a World Cup next year, a Women's World Cup next year in England. And she's also already mentioned about the NRLW and giving a league a go, but probably at sevens at least she will bow out as an Olympic competitor.
Hey, let's also give a shout out to the Canadian team who came second. Like, it's very great effort, only a 7-point final. What was that game like, New Zealand versus Canada?
Yeah, look, I think we always had it under control, but it was edgy seat stuff. And I'll give credit to to everyone as well. So being there throughout the day, the best match to watch was, funnily enough, France versus Ireland. Now, the French supporters do something that obviously New Zealand and Australian rugby supporters don't know what to do, and that's actually cheer for their team with some decent songs and chants. Like, New Zealand games were the worst games to watch from my point of view as well, because I was nervous as hell. I didn't want the girls to lose. But also, it's like every New Zealander is like that. So we just sit on the edge of the seat, we score a try, we cheer, that's the game. Like, the excitement's on the field, and when I'm saying it's the worst game to watch, I'm not saying it's the worst actual game in terms of skill or anything, but we support so poorly, and even the Aussies, a few Aussie, oi, oi, oi chants, and it was just like the French atmosphere makes me want to go and watch a French actual like 15s men's club game, because the atmosphere was incredible for that. And the same, even the Canadians got into it in the final and definitely out-voiced us in the final. And I think their players played off the back of that. I think the unfortunate thing is for Canada, they would have probably had more supporters had they not knocked the French out. And because they knocked the French out, I think there was this bit of, French and European that you can't do that and then support them. So, yeah, the game was fantastic, but I felt like we were always in control. It was just, you never know with sevens, as you Aussie saw, like at one play, they stay in the game long enough, they can get the win. But yeah, I felt like we were always in control and going to get the win. I just felt, I was edge of the seat stuff. But yeah, again, a great tournament, as you said, by Canada. I think, again, sevens in the Olympic just shows why it needs to be there. It just gets everyone talking. And I actually think, when I'm sitting there and I was thinking, I actually think the product of sevens for the Olympics is obviously better than having 15s. But then you look at something like football or soccer, they play under 23s, so they don't play like a smaller version. They play an age-based one. And I know, obviously, football is always going to get more hype than rugby, but there just seems to be, obviously, because sevens is faster impact, and all you've done is drop the age, and then you've got free players that can play over. So the skill level drops in that football, whereas the skill level is still very high in the sevens. I actually think it's a better product than what football offer in the Olympics. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't think under 23 is the right way to do football. I think they need a faster paced game there as well. But I just sat there and I witnessed. I was like, there was a great day. I feel sorry for the athletes as well. It's 37 degrees out there, probably above 40 inside the stadium. So a rough one there for them. On to Super Rugby, I just wanted to quickly touch base on my Hurricanes. Obviously, proudly wearing the Hurricanes jersey. We've obviously lost Artie Savia. Artie Savia's left us, and I'm going to bring the mic close to me. Now, we had lost previously for this year Geordie Barrett. He's heading off to Leinster for a year. So now we've lost Geordie Barrett, who's vice-captain of the All Blacks. We've lost Artie Savia, who's going to be the captain for the first couple of games against Argentina, with Scott Barrett out. And then our most experienced player, I think, of all time, just about, TJ Perenara, is headed over to Japan. What the fuck is happening at the Hurricanes? Look, here's the thing. I don't doubt that we can fix these, and I've been lucky enough to play with TJ Perenara as a 9-10 combo once upon a time. I was pretty good at rugby once back in my day. What am I trying to say? Obviously, he was playing club rugby. It wasn't like I was a professional or anything. Yeah. And he always talks about, obviously, it's more than a game. And I think the Achilles injury from the last time he was playing for the All Blacks and coming back from that probably woke him up to he's coming towards the end of his career. And I know it was a substantial offer that came in from Japan for this 3-year deal. So I don't blame him for taking that at all. I just gutted because I think he'd got back into his peak performance. Like, he was playing the best he's been playing for the All Blacks. Actually, now that Aaron Smith's gone, I think he could have solidified starting until the next World Cup. Yeah. Probably broken a few All Blacks records by doing that, because I think he would have played the most games. But the sport is fickle, doesn't last forever, and getting the money, we've always talked about that, go and get that bag. So I'm happy for these players. I'm happy that Geordie's getting a chance to go and play with some great players and grow. Happy for Artie doing what's right culturally. Happy for TJ sending himself out. But it makes me nervous as we head towards a Super Rugby season where we finished first, obviously without Artie, but with TJ. We've got Cam Roigard coming back, which is a blessing. I think we've got substantial replacements in the centres for Geordie Barrett. But goddamn, if you could lose 3 players, I would not choose those 3 players to lose in any team anywhere. We have lost arguably our 3 best players, and I just need to know if any other team could do that and still survive.
Well, on the flip side of things, my Waratahs made some very nice signings recently. Really boosted. They really benefited from the Rebels closing down. Taniela Tupou, Kailea, Rob Leota just announced. Darby Lancaster, Kellaway was always moving, but now that's also from the back of the Rebels. So give you those players, and I love what I love about them is 3 quality forwards in there and two of them front rowers. So yeah, look, Waratahs, hopefully it's a big reload year. Dan McKellar getting in there, resetting the culture, hopefully gets Tupou to stay beyond just 1 year. Yeah, look, very excited for what the Waratahs have in store for 2025.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that, I think it'll be interesting to get your opinion. Who do you think's come out best with the Rebels split? Now, the Reds have ended up with Matt Gibbon, Lukan Salakai-Lotu, Josh Kanem. I'm just reading through the list. Filippo Dalgunu and Lockie Anderson. You guys have just ended up with the list you just said. Brumbies only got Tuiana Tai Tuialima. And there was one more. Let me find out. It was a centre. Yeah, David Filiui. And then the Western Force picked up Divad Palu, the under-20s player. And I think that was about it, with them already making most of their signings as they took Harry Johnson home, Darcy, Swain, a couple others there. Who do you think came out best? It's obviously a battle of the New South Walemen and Queensland, I think.
I think it's it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it from the perspective, well, I think really any way I look at it, it's the Waratahs, because which team is going to improve the most off the back of these signings? It's going to be the Waratahs, right? Queensland Reds finished last season in 5th. How much better do they get off the back of these signings? Maybe a top 4 spot, but it's a tight competition, right? The Waratahs finished, they finished where they finished. Let's put it that way. Let's not break my heart. The Waratahs can only go up. The Waratahs can only go up from these signings. For me, yeah, I think the Waratahs, because they're going to benefit the most from these. Like, it's just, yeah, it's just the Waratahs. I can't. Any which way you look at it, any angle you take, bottom of the ladder, you can only go up from there. Right, can only go up. They're definitely not staying in the same spot. I can't see that happening with Dan McKellar coming in, with these players coming in, and with hopefully not such an extraordinary run of horrific injuries as well. So you've also got Suali'i coming in. Jorgensen should be back and healthy, like he's healthy enough to play for the Wallabies. Same with Angus Bell. Hopefully Parecki gets back in there as well. And all the other players that missed injury. Yes, we're losing a couple of players as well, but yeah, I just can't see the Waratahs being as bad that next year as they were this year.
Well, you know what's good. It's physically impossible for you guys to actually finish as low as you guys finished at 12, because there's only 11 teams in the comp next year.
Yeah, so, exactly.
So you already can't go as bad. But I would say
already on the way up.
Yeah, already on the way up, made the first steps. I would say, the Reds are close, and the only reason I think they've added a lot of, like Dalgunu adds a lot to them already, and as you said, finished 5th. Can these players that they've added take that to that next step is the question. Can they get a top 4 finish? Because hosting for the Reds a quarterfinal, semi-final is big. And I guess it makes it really interesting because the Brumbies obviously haven't added a whole lot of names to their list yet, and they were the best Wallabies, Australian side in Super Rugby. So it'll be interesting. Again, as much as we've talked about it and we don't like seeing teams drop out in the Rebels, what happened in the Rebels obviously is guttering. These Aussie teams are looking stronger by the day, With every signature that gets made, with every signing that happens, it scares you a bit more. And I saw as well Tamani, the 6/lock for the Drua a couple of years back, who moved over to France, to sign back on with the Drua. Now that Mick Byrne is coaching Flying Fijians, the international team, I wonder if he'll push a few more players, as he was former Drua coach. So a lot of talent going a lot of places in Super Rugby. And so I think we're going to have, in my opinion, the most competitive Super Rugby year we'll ever have. And we discussed this the year just being, or I say ever have in a long time. We discussed this last year, that all these games, on each day, a Highlanders team could beat a Hurricanes team. And now you're going to be sitting there going, when the Waratahs beat the Crusaders, it's not going to be by surprise because they've got the talent there. If they go on a run, it's stuff like that is really interesting and is going to grow to Super Rugby. I just feel like we're building for something really special. If we can get the marketing of this year right, we can get the product right. God, Super Rugby could be fantastic.
Yeah, and look, maybe they'll surprise us all and sneak in the Argentinian team for next year's comp.
Totally,
and
again, an Argentinian team is a great shout again with the depth that adds to the comp. They came in and after 3 years again they were competing for a title. So this isn't a team that again you're adding and it's not going to be good. Like they've got the ability there, they've got the depth there, they've got the want for it. So yeah. I wanted to ask you a question now. There's been some advertising going around with Moana Pacific stuff and obviously Adi Savia's name on the back of jerseys there. Obviously a big signing. You want to sell a product that is probably going to, market well to fans of Moana Pacifica and fans of Adi Savia like myself. Should we be having names on the back of jerseys as, you look at the NFL with Mahomes, top-selling jerseys, stuff like that, baseball. Are we missing a marketing ploy by not having names on the back of jerseys?
100%. And same with rugby league as well. And they're starting to consider it as well. Firstly, what it does at the very basic, before you even get into the marketing side of things, it makes the game easier to understand for people who are not your regular rugby/rugby league fans, right? Like my missus isn't that into rugby. She actually quite enjoys watching it, but she doesn't know who the players are, apart from maybe the superstars who get their name yelled out all the time. And it's similar with the NFL. But when she watches the NFL with me, because she's Polish, if she sees a player with like a Polish last name, the commentator might not call him out, but she reads it on the back of the jersey. She'll be like, "Oh, that player's got some Polish heritage or something," And so imagine that with the applying to rugby, like how many people will see last names that maybe they recognize, or even just learning the names of the players. Like if they see someone do something good, they'd be like, "Oh, you can have that connection with the player." Like, "Oh, that player, his last name is Gamble, so I'll like him now. He's got a great mustache. I'll become a fan of him now." It just makes that connection easier rather than like, "Oh, that's that number 6. He had the mustache. What's his name? Oh, I can't really remember." Because he might not have a big game where his name gets called out a lot, or if you're there watching in the stadium, the names hardly get called out at all as compared to listen to the commentary. So at the very basic level, it just allows fans, especially casual fans, a greater connection with the game. Then yes, in terms of marketing and advertising and merch sales, yes, absolutely. It allows you. It's not even that expensive to do to add names to the back of the jersey, because like with the NFL jerseys, you could do the cheapo iron-on versions of the name, or you could get the premium range where they're stitched in. So it gives you more product diversity there, right? And it gives you just more products to sell overall. Like, yeah, I think it's seems like one of those things that it's like old tradition to not have the names on the jersey because it's more about the position than the players. And it's like, yes, that's the number, but the name is its own thing. Like, you're denying these players their role in the game. And I think for too long, rugby has missed a trick by not amping up the players of the game, because the players, as you'll see in other sports, in every other sport, league, NFL, NBA, hockey, soccer, what do people talk about the most? Like in our group chat, what do we debate about the most? Who's the best player? Who's the best at this position? Who's this? It's the players, right? And I think Union misses a trick with that. And League has done a much better job of it by really rallying and advertising around their superstars. Union doesn't do it nearly enough. And I think this jersey on the back, name on the back of the jerseys, could be a good way to get into that, to start building up the profiles of these players.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And what I would do, I think what you could do really well is actually do it all at all competitions except like a Rugby World Cup. And so you have a Rugby World Cup special where it's just no names on back of jerseys. And the reason I say that, I think it's more than you going in as a nation and a team and everything like that than individuals. But everything else I would have across the board, names on back of jerseys.
Yeah.
I'm going to push one question further, and this may be a step too far, and I want your opinion on it. Obviously, we have positions, and I know for the easy game, numbers make it easier because we've got a position called number 8. That is the number 8. But is there a world where we could say, hey, you can actually choose a number from 0 to 99?
No, because I think that is one thing with the NFL, that the reason they had this number 0 to 99 is because the same 15 players or even the same 23 players aren't always on the field. And even though the bench in rugby has got some structure to it, like generally a reserve player with a certain number on their back is going to fill in for a certain position. It's not locked in stone. It's much easier to explain to someone new to the game the positions of 1 to 15. Like, oh, you see that guy the number 3, he's a prop, right? It's easy, and it's easy to explain. Yeah, a number 3 is a prop, or a number 8 plays number 8, a 4 or 5 plays second row. It's easier to translate that, and the accessibility of the game is greater. NFL, because you have such a varied rotation of players, it does make sense to have a range of numbers to fill in for different positions. But trying to explain someone in rugby like, oh yeah, a halfback is number anywhere from number 9 to 20 is I think too difficult for rugby. I think you could do it, but it would just make it unnecessarily difficult. I think actually that is something that where the difference between rugby and NFL is very pronounced, and I don't think we could replicate that part of the NFL. Nor do I think we should. I think it's that's actually quite good at the moment, and as I said, it makes the game accessible to casual viewers.
Totally, yeah, yeah. I think that's a good idea. I just think, yeah, again, with marketing, the idea, like, you could do it, and again, I don't think I necessarily agree with it, but say you buy an Adi Savia jersey for 8, and Moana Pacific, and all of a sudden he's named at 7, you look like a bit of a plum. But again, those are if he's generally named as an 8 as to start off with, you buy it with that idea, and it doesn't actually matter on the end, but you just lose a little bit of the player's identity.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you could, even if you did like a warm-up number, like I do love, I don't know if all teams do this. I know the Rabbitohs do it in rugby league, where they have their number that they are the 177th Rabbitoh and so on their warm-up jerseys and stuff like that.
I was gonna say, why have position numbers on the back of the jerseys that you sell to fans at all? Just have the player's name on the back that you sell.
You could do, but again, some
Yeah.
people love the idea of the number as well.
And then again, that's another option as well. Then you don't have to get the number, but if you want it, you can pay extra for it. It just again it I think as well, a lot of part of difficulty of getting into rugby is the cost as well. And I think that needs to be recognized, is that sports merchandise nowadays, but especially rugby merchandise, is so expensive.
Yeah.
Like, again, I'm going to bring up my girlfriend because that she's sort of a target market in a way, because she's interested in watching rugby. She would support rugby, and she's relatively new to the game and needs education on it, right? She said she wanted to get a Waratahs shirt, and we looked up how expensive it is. The cheapest one's like $80, right? And that's not even for a jersey. And it's like that financial barrier, and $80 in the grand scheme of things isn't a huge amount, but just for something you have a passing interest in that maybe you want to develop into a more full-time interest, $80 is a heck of a barrier to entry, right? So offering different tiers of product, scaling to different levels of fan engagement, I think is really good. You could then drop the price of your basic Waratahs shirt down, and then the more specific you get with the different players' names, those could be more expensive for the more dedicated fans, which is something I think NFL does pretty well. They're still relatively pricey, but you can find stores that sell them for a bit better price and things like that. Or you could just get very basic stuff. Like I've got some very basic Pittsburgh Steelers shirts that were pretty cheap, you know. So I think that's something that they do quite well. Whereas the jerseys, are quite expensive, but that's that's a real hardcore fan investment. So yeah, I think you've got to look at the accessibility. It offers you more options for accessibility as well.
Yeah, totally. Love it. Mate, your Wallaby squad got named.
Yes.
and we're now 1 week away, so let's combine this into two. First, let's start with your Wallaby squad thoughts, and then hit us with your round one predictions, which see South Africa play you and us play Argentina. Is it Brisbane, I believe? And then
Wallabies are in Brisbane.
I don't actually know where we're hosting.
Yeah.
Argentina. But start with your Wallaby squad thoughts, my friend.
So first thought is Korobetti's back in the side, which is great. Similar to Dangunu, offers a similar skill set, but he's just also a unique athlete as well, Marika Korobete. I like that we've kept the 10s consistent with Lolasia, Lina, and Donaldson. The halves, Jake Gordon and Nick White. The only question I had in the halves is, again, we're not seeing Lonergan in there. I actually think Lonergan's a better half than Nick White. And sorry, Tate McDermott's also in there. Can't forget Tate. I'm just not a huge Nick White fan because I don't think his pass off the ruck is fast enough, and that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. I like that Corey Toole's getting a chance. Love it, absolutely love it. Corey Toole, Max Jorgensen getting in there. Love it. I love the Carlo Tizzano. We were debating last week. Carlo Tizzano, Charlie Gamble fell the way of Carlo Tizzano. Not unhappy about that. Just overall fan of squad. Love that Angus Bell is able to be back and playing. One of my favorite players. And one of the questions I have, and this was raised by my brother, so shout out to Connor, and maybe I'd like to get your thoughts on this, which is Charlie Cale versus Harry Wilson. Harry Wilson's in the squad, Charlie Cale is not. Charlie Cale, I think, had a better Super Rugby season. Wilson seemed to flash more in the Wallabies games, but that was arguably because of his combination with Fraser McWright, who's not in the squad due to injury. So do you think that Wilson falls off without the presence of McWright there? And do you think that Cale maybe should have got an opportunity over Wilson?
No, I think I actually like that. I think this is Joe Smith down to a T planning for the future. Charlie Cale's going to be the eventual, in my opinion, number 8 for the Wallabies at the World Cup in 2027, and probably will be the Wallabies number 8 next year. But as we've seen with young Wallabies, blooding them in the Rugby Championship is never a good idea. And he's blooded him in the Wales game and Georgia game. He now goes, look, son, go and have a bit of a holiday, have a break, come back into Super Rugby absolutely fizzing. You're not done, obviously, if injuries happen. Yeah. We may pull you in and you may actually see the field. So be ready. But you are a step closer to being the Wallabies number 8 and go out and dominate for the Brumbies next year. So I think it's a masterclass.
That was my thinking as well. Is Wilson got more minutes in those games? Cale had some minutes, but he didn't have enough to have a huge impact, and he didn't have enough to really just blow you away. Where it's like, oh, this guy has to be in the squad, no matter what. No, and it's very rare that you find a player like that. Even superstar players aren't always that great at first. It's generational players that are like that. I tend to agree. I think Wilson, he's got. It's less risky. It's less risky to put Wilson in there. But you also know Wilson is going to bring that physicality that you need to play the South Africans. He might miss having McWright there with him, but hey, he's going to have to. He's done it before. I'm sure he'll be able to do it again. I don't mind it either. I don't mind it at all.
Nice, yeah. I've already covered this on a TikTok, but I pretty much said very similar things. Obviously, the only glaring miss is Will Skelton, and that has been written down to. I actually read an article this morning that he's on holiday at the moment, and for him to be brought off holiday, and that's what Joe Smith, again, another just absolute planning and communication, came out and said, look, if we pull him out of his holiday and he comes over and gets fatigued and isn't in his best shape, he's probably not going to help us a lot. And then he goes back to France, plays for his club team, is probably more fatigued. Who's he helping here in this situation? As it's not a French international window. Yeah, it's very much so that I think they'll. So don't be surprised if he gets in there at the end of the Northern Tour, and you see him for some games. But I think again, you got to manage your players, and Joe Smith knows this better than anyone. He's got a massive tournament next year, which I think he will push to get scouted him for the British and Irish Lions to it, and then he's got to get him through to the World Cup. He's 32, I believe, at the, currently. So, 3-ish years away, he'll be 35. You want Skeltons to still be there and competing, then you need to look after him, is my opinion. So, yeah.
Same age as me. Same month as well. 3rd of May, 1992 for him. 25th for me. So he's a couple of weeks older than me.
Yeah, and
those couple
weeks have made a big difference. Yeah.
made approximately 30 centimeters difference.
Okay, so Australia versus South Africa in Brisbane.
Yeah.
I think I've just read 500 tickets left, so it'll be a sellout.
Yeah.
Springboks haven't won in Brisbane for 10 years. I don't know when the last time they played in Brisbane. I imagine they've played a couple of times since then. Where are you going? Joe Schmidt's already starting with the mind games with Razzie, has said they seem to get quite lucky with refereeing decisions. The banter has started. It is getting serious. We know it's a showdown. Who are you going there?
I mean, obviously the Wallabies. Obviously, the Cora Betty's back, so that's all we can say. No, look, it's going to be a great game. I'm picking the Wallabies. Look, Brisbane is one of their strongest grounds that they play at. The Wallabies, it is, and look, the Queenslanders are just starved for good rugby this year. The Broncos are shit, right? Cowboys are nothing to write home about. The Titans seem to be doing okay. The Dolphins are fading yet again because Wayne Bennett's stealing all their talent. They lost Origin in Brisbane. Right, the Reds fizzled out as well, so they're starved for good rugby this year. The Queenslanders, they need a good team to get behind. They're going to be up for this because this is their final hope. This is Brisbane's final hope for some good rugby this year. So they're going to get up for it. They're going to get behind the team. And the Wallabies are going to fucking deliver for them, unlike Queensland.
Yeah, I love it. I think Springboks will probably go in as favourites, obviously, just based off names alone and the name of Springboks and the names of the players that they name. But I love a Australian ambush, and in Brisbane, I don't think there's a better place to do it to come out. I think it's going to be one of the most physical games we've seen in a while. I know Springboks coming off the back of obviously the Irish ones, but I think the actual physicality is going to be up there with some of the best. And we saw Aliatoa and Ebenezer Best screaming match a couple of years ago, and I think it's going to be same exact feeling in these games. So I'm bloody excited. The All Blacks then take on host the Argentinians in Wellington. We never normally play well in Wellington, so I think it's going to be like a one-score game. It's going to be a lot closer than people expect because I don't know why we even like. I'm a Hurricanes Wellington man and Porirua man actually, but they never play well in Wellington. Every single time I watch the All Blacks play in Wellington, I just get nervous because I'm like, why are we playing here? We should just play games in everywhere else bar Wellington. So I think we'll get the job done, but I'm not exuberating confidence, as you can tell.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree as well. It's very rare for Argentina to be able to beat New Zealand in New Zealand. We saw history made a few years ago when that did happen. I don't know if it's soon enough for Argentina to do that. Argentinian rugby, it's hard to gauge where it's at right now. The safe bet is New Zealand, and that's my head and my heart are telling me New Zealand for that one. As much as I would enjoy an Argentinian win, don't get me wrong, I still think it's more likely to be New Zealand.
Yes, that is us for today. Obviously, the Rugby Championship right around the corner. To be exact, for me, it's 4 days, 19 hours. 5:30 a.m. kickoff on Saturday for your Australians I'm in London. And then an 8:05 a.m. kickoff for the New Zealand game. So I'll be ready to go for both of those games. But we will be back next week, same time, same place, to run you through all of those games. Thank you for joining us. I have been Luke. That has been Husey. We have been That Rugby Podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth. See you later.
Peace.